Welcome back to Watching the Throne, episode 77 on the Late Night Chat Network. And welcome back to Watching the Throne, everybody. This is our Game of Thrones / now House of the Dragon overview review show that we do here on the Late Night Chat Network. And joining with me today, of course, we got JT.
Just JT.
And of course, as always, as of lately, basically our third co-host of this show here, Christina, aka Silk Road Magician over here. What's going on? Our super fan here. What's going on?
Not much. I'm really looking forward to doing this.
Sure, you are. Yeah. The topics of conversation that will come up throughout this one. Yes.
You know what? Whatever. It'll just be interesting. This is what, these video podcasts are for. So
yeah. And this is like an episode that we have been talking about even when we were still recording Game of Thrones. We were like, oh, we're going to do House of the Dragon. Oh, remember
this episode? Yeah. This is it.
This is the one.
Tune in, everybody.
Is the one. So yeah, this will be a lot of fun. So
crank up the volume, put your phone on do not disturb. This is
and that episode is King of the Narrow Sea. No, It's not.
It is. Yeah, Season 1, episode 4, King of the Narrow Sea.
Yeah, I thought for a second there, it seemed like this should have been the name of the last episode. But we'll get to why this episode. Why is this episode called that? It threw me off right now.
Because Daemon was dubbed King of the Narrow Sea.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Okay. JT made a joke about a narrow urethra earlier, so I thought that's what it was referring to for a second. I'm
talking about grabbing the KY. He was talking about narrow urethras. It's just we're ready to go. We're
I never actually said narrow urethra.
Yeah, you can't even say the word clearly. It's your pee hole.
Your pee hole. That's for your pee.
No.
God.
Yeah, we're off to a great start here. No, but yes. Christina is thankfully gonna be. Of course, these are the episodes that she was given. She's gonna be narrating this episode for us, guys, with the faithful notes that we pulled off of the internet here. I think it's called Game of Thrones Wiki, the website that we normally use, which kind of gives us like a rundown of all the scenes, like a synopsis of the scenes in the episode, so we can get into it. But yeah, go ahead, Christina. Why don't you start your rundown here of the opening of this episode here for us?
So
take it away.
This episode takes place, again, the common theme in this show, time jumps. So this is 1 year after last episode. So now we're 1 year ahead. After the royal hunt in the Kingswood, Rhaenyra Targaryen is touring the realm and holding audiences of potential suitors for her hand in marriage. So she is in Storm's End, the seat of the House Baratheon in the Stormlands, and potential suitors are lined up in the main hall, introduced by Lord Boromund Baratheon, while the princess is given the honor of sitting on his throne. Rhaenyra is obviously frustrated by the many suitors that are too old or too young, or they're lords of minor houses. So it's an interesting scene.
The princess has a dragon, you dumb cunt. That's my favorite part. Sorry, that's my favorite line in this scene with that guy. And then that little kid proceeds to gut the shit out of this fucking guy. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Willem Blackwood put himself forward. He's well-spoken, but he's clearly underage. And she didn't take his proposal seriously. This other gentleman, Gerald Bracken from the House Blackwood and House Bracken, I guess they've been feuding, this little kid, Willem, and this Gerald person. They've been feuding for years. And anyways, Rhaenyra, she's bored of their bickering back and forth. She asks to hear the next suitor in line, so they can finish up and go to supper. Anyways, yeah, they get into some heated exchange, and like Nico said, he ends up like gutting the shit out of him as she's walking away. So her Rhaenyra and Kristen Cole are headed. They're leaving the throne room. She's exhausted and not interested in any of this anymore. Rhaenyra orders Kristen to send word to have her ship prepared to sail back to King's Landing, even though her tour of suitors was supposed to continue for a few more months. But just as they reach the hall doors, I just said this. They hear the scuffle. Next scene, they are on the ship heading back to. They're just in the harbor, about to head back into King's Landing. But she's apprehensive that her father Viserys will be upset that she's not only rejected every proposed suitor, but they also canceled the tour early, about 2 months early, to return home. Just as they're having this conversation, they hear the cries of Caraxes overhead as Daemon Targaryen buzzes their ship with his dragon, dangerously close, almost rocking it off its, balance. On the way to return to the royal court for the first time in 4 years. So Daemon has been absent from court for 4 years, and from everybody else. He hasn't seen Rhaenyra. He hasn't seen anybody for 4 years. So this is an interesting intro back into court for him as well. Any thoughts with this quick opening scene? I mean, Neeks, you already explained your.
Sorry to just yell that out, by the way, guys. I wasn't saying that to Christina. I was saying the quote that I most like for that.
No, that was good. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't know why she's like, again, like, I don't know why she's entertaining this bullshit of fucking picking somebody for her to marry when. It just seems like she's somebody who takes what she wants, and I don't know why she's playing this game to this degree. Like, her father literally said a year ago at this point,
pick whoever you want.
Yeah, like, why
just get married?
I just don't understand. Like, she kind of goes back and forth in her way. I don't know.
Well,
I think
I think it's just like, she's trying to prolong the inevitable. She's trying to get away from home, so she's like, well, if I can go on a tour, get out of the house, like, get away from these people. I think it's just like, she doesn't really want to get married. She's putting it off. She's just, I don't know. It just seems like a very miserable way to spend some time, but yeah, I don't know.
I just don't know why she like simultaneously plays into this shit and yet opposes it at the same time. Like, it's just like, why are you even into? And again, this is a year later, like you said, and she's 18 now, which the first time around, I did not realize. Like, there's some scenes happening in this episode that, while still fucking creepy despite her age, I thought she was like 15 or 14 or something the first time I saw this episode. And I think we even talked about that when we were covering Game of Thrones. There's a couple of things about this creepy moment later on in the episode that I didn't see the same way this time around, which made it a little less creepy, thankfully, for me, but still creepy nonetheless.
I was so taken off guard the first time I watched this episode. Yeah. It was so uncomfortable.
It was like, much more worse in my mind revisiting this episode than it was actually watching it, to be honest with you. Like, it was still weird, but we're talking, hence the Pleasure House scene. We're going to get to that, but that's hence my name here, Pleasure House Neeks, of course. Right, Jay?
Jay, any input?
On this first one?
Yeah, that was just quick.
No, nothing really. It's just nice to see how he entered in. Yeah, I like to see all that. And she's, just, like you said, wasting time, I think, to be honest with you. And she's doing it just to kind of please him for now.
Keep her dad quiet. Off her back.
You don't want to yell out the word cunt at all? No? Okay, go ahead.
No, you beat me to it.
He's saving it. The next scene is actually, it's interesting to see. You see a lot of the noble people of the court filing into the throne room, and Rhaenyra is kind of weaving in and out of them. Not really. It's interesting because you would think that she would be entering from a different way because she is the heir, but she's kind of like in and amongst them, and nobody's really paying mind to her. She's kind of like foreshadowed, like she's kind of weaving herself in and out. But interestingly, she is wearing the necklace that Daemon gave her like 4 years prior, which was interesting for me to see that. But more interesting. So Viserys, he's on the throne, and he's putting on his full regalia, like his full Targaryen outfit to receive his wayward younger brother. Daemon enters, jauntily enters the throne room, and not only carrying Dark Sister, which is his sword, his Valyrian sword, but playfully tossing the warhammer of Cregus Crabfeeder in his hand, and wearing his own crown made of bone and driftwood. He also has a haircut.
Mm-hmm.
When he had a chance to stop, I don't know.
As he reaches the base of the throne, Lord Commander Harold Westerling draws his own sword and points it slowly into Daemon's chest plate to ward him off. The tension breaks when Daemon throws the warhammer on the ground in front of the Iron Throne and says, "Add it to the chair."
Sick. Yeah, I liked that a lot when he did that. Yeah. Really boisterous, fucking, like, you know.
Yeah, in front of all these people. You haven't been here in 4 years. You literally abandoned your king. You didn't. Right. Yeah, and it's just like, here, add it to the chair.
But he's soaking it up in his first part of the episode. He, like, you know, not only from the respect from his brother finally for winning the war, but like from everybody else. He's loving it, right? Loving the attention in this moment. Absolutely.
He is. Harold sheaths his own sword, and Viserys points out that Daemon is wearing a crown, inquiring if he also calls himself king. Daemon says that his men hailed him the King of the Narrow Sea after he led them to smash the Triarchy's forces and conquer the Stepstones. But he quickly adds that he knows that there is only one true king. He then, in a very, not Daemon sort of a way, kneels and offers up both his crown and the Stepstones to his older brother. Viserys asks what has become of Corlys Velaryon, and Daemon says that he sailed back to Driftmark. Viserys also asks who holds the Stepstones, to which Daemon replied, "The tides, the crabs, and the corpses of 2,000 Triarchy corsairs left staked on the shore as a warning to any who might follow Drahar's example." So Viserys comes down from the throne with his sheathed sword Blackfire in hand, and is at first hesitant about what to do. But after a moment, he orders Daemon to rise, and the two brothers embrace. The entire court applauds the reconciliation, save for a displeased Otto Hightower.
Good look happy.
I gotta say, these guys have way sicker sword names than anybody did in Game of Thrones. I like their sword names; they're pretty awesome. I mean, Oathbreaker is pretty cool, though, I guess, and like
Widow's Wail, that's kind of cool.
But like Dark Sister and fucking what's this one? Blackfire.
Yeah,
pretty. Those are pretty good ones too. I think they're. I don't know. They're all pretty good, I guess. But I quite like these their sword names here. Like Dark Sister, I think is the best one. Honestly, I don't know for whatever
Dark
reason.
Sister.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. They don't really talk about how they give them their names, but anyways, that's that. We'll look into that and we'll get back to you with the facts. I'm not on my fact game this time.
Oh, it's all right. There's a lot to cover here. Go for it.
Viserys then hosts a feast in Daemon's honor in the Red Keep's Godswood. Again, Jay's fucking tree. Viserys gets somewhat drunk, sharing happy stories with his brother that he hasn't seen since Queen Emma's death, and the wooing and the ensuing succession woes of 4 years. The king good-naturedly admits that Daemon has always been their mother's favorite. Daemon was like her, was a rule breaker. He didn't care for custom or tradition. But Alicent Hightower, who's also part of this conversation, approaches and welcomes Daemon, inviting him to see the new fine tapestries that are displayed in the gallery. Viserys laughs, as Daemon is clearly uninterested in tapestries and artwork. But, Rhaenyra, trying to soften the blow, says, she'd like to see them, and excuses herself to talk to Alicent on a bench in the gallery. So that
was
was
awesome. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like how like smug he is when he's like, no, he has no fucking such interest in tapestries. He's like, and his brother starts laughing. He just dismisses her. Like Allison's trying to play like the kind of like the wife in this situation or the queen.
yeah, she's,
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
but like it's just like so dismissive that he's like, he doesn't fucking care about tapestries. Get the fuck out of here. We're drinking. That's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
haven't
care
seen my brother in 4 years, and we're
yeah,
just catching up. And you want to talk about tapestries? Get
he
out of
does
here.
there's no such interest in fucking tapestries.
He-
I did like that scene a lot. Yeah, very good.
So, the next scene, Alicent and Rhaenyra they're chatting in the gallery, and Alicent, surmises that the tour did not go well, because Rhaenyra has returned early, and Rhaenyra says she's endured it for as long as she could, but of course, Alicent's like, well, sarcastically, he's like, oh, it must be so hard having every knight and lord in the Seven Kingdoms fawning over you. It must have been such misery. But then he urges Rhaenyra, you know, uh, to continue and say that it's rare that anyone has the opportunity to get a choice between two suitors, much less 40 of them.
Right.
Rhaenyra counters that these men aren't fawning for her, but only her name and her bloodline to advance their own status. She's so cynical. When but Alicent, she's ever the romantic, ever the soft, naive little Alicent. She's like, no, that sounds so romantic. You get to choose. Anyways, Rhaenyra blurts out that she doesn't see what's so romantic about marrying so that she can be locked up in a castle and made to squeeze out heirs. Alicent is quietly wounded, as she now exactly describes her situation in life, but embarrassed Rhaenyra realizes and she apologizes.
Yeah, I felt bad and I had a lot of respect for Alicent because of these scenes here, because like we mentioned even briefly last episode, she really has taken on a lot. Like she is the queen now. She knew what she was doing in the sense, even though her father somewhat pushed her into it, obviously, because that is what he was setting up. But like she has taken a lot on a lot, I think, for being in this position. Like, even it comes at a cost, even for being queen for her, right? Because as the episode goes on, like, there's a lot of shit that she has to deal with for being the queen, right, in her position, and it just seems like a sad existence. Like in this next scene here, like she's basically like, I have no fucking friends. Like, you know what I mean? Like she has no one now, and she's just locked up. Like she said, she's in the tower, expected to give birth to children, and that's just her role in life now, right? Like, so yeah.
She still wishes to be the Lady Alicent, but these days everyone in court thinks of her just as the queen and accessory of the king.
Yeah.
She does tell Rhaenyra she has very little friends, and how, Viserys is trying to do his best for Rhaenyra, but it's just not. Anyways, they end up reconciling after this conversation and kind of putting their differences aside, which is nice because they were friends growing up, and they seem, I don't know, they seem to be coming back together, which is nice.
Yeah, and I think, like, because there's been so much time that has passed between these last two episodes, you are seeing a maturing of sorts here between these characters, like a little bit.
It's been 4 years. Like, it's kind of like when you're gonna let it up, right? When you're gonna let it go.
Yeah, this scene was badly needed in that sense too. Like, we needed to catch up with these two, and I also started to see here why Rhaenyra would be hesitant of going the same route that her mother did as a result of everything that has occurred, from her dying from giving birth to now seeing what's going on with her friend who's basically sharing the same fate in terms of just having to give birth to heirs. It did make me feel for her a little bit, and obviously this isn't an ideal situation for anyone involved, but like, you know what I mean? Like, they both, I think, kind of saw that they're both in these positions here where we still have a lot in common, in the sense that like we can recognize what we're both dealing with. It seems like it's somewhat, right? Like, I don't know.
I think it's also a little interesting because it's like, like Rhaenyra has a choice to find her husband and to like pick anyone and to try to have a happy marriage, right? Whereas like Alicent essentially was in love with Viserys as well. And, so it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously turned out a little differently than maybe she was expecting it to turn out, but like she did have a relationship with him a little bit before marrying him. So it's kind of interesting how, I don't know, like it just seems, I don't know what I'm trying to get at here, but it's almost the same. Like you're marrying for love versus status or political gain, even though it is political gain. But it's like you also like enjoy this person. It's not.
She did genuinely seem like she liked him. Yes, it did
Yeah.
seem like genuinely she liked him. But unfortunately, because of the circumstances, her father was going to push her into that situation either way. So at least
That's true.
right? Like, so I think like at least like she did take kindly to him. Like she did seem to enjoy his time, like her time talking with him. It did genuinely come off that way, but I just don't think that she, under the guise of like what her father was planning, it's still uncomfortable for her. She can't really truly enjoy, I feel like, that moment, knowing that's what her father kind of wants, right? And as you go on in this episode, I mean, this is a bit jumping ahead, but again, like he's wounded now, and then like again you have to come to the realization you having this old ass wounded man like climb on top of you, you're not taking pleasure in like what is occurring in the bedroom, like, so that it's kind of sad in that sense too, a little bit. Like that scene is a bit scarring. Like honestly, like you're just like, whoa, this isn't great. Like
that's why they had to do jump shots.
Yeah, the cut scenes, but the shit that they're cutting it with is terrible too.
It's just like, oh my god, like I don't know, I can't look. It's like the train wreck. It's like you don't know where to look.
I don't want to step on that whole conversation, so yeah, I'll leave it at
We'll
that.
get
But
there. Sometime later, Rhaenyra finds, sometime later, meaning later that day, that week, whatever, it doesn't specify, but Rhaenyra finds Daemon standing alone under the weirwood heart tree. Rhaenyra and her uncle continue to have a private conversation in High Valyrian, which, while retiring to a row of seats near the feast tables along the wall there. Rhaenyra says that her father is intent on selling her off to the lord with the biggest castle, and though she doesn't mind the attention, the rest she could do without. Daemon slyly says that marriage is just a political arrangement. It wouldn't stop her from seeking private pleasures. But Rhaenyra says that it might be a political arrangement for men, but for women, it is like a death sentence. And she reveals that she is bitterly worried about ending up like her mother, made to produce new potential heirs until she died in childbirth. She refuses to accept that she will have the same fate. Daemon advises that she cannot live in fear, or she will forsake the best parts of it. So Rhaenyra says she doesn't intend to live in fear, only in pleasant solitude. So
this kind of reminds me of like a kind of like a more mature style of a Quagmire,
He's like grooming her.
Yeah, getting her ready, like all the people he has in his house keeping for him, right? You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, this is a really weird scene. I get it. I liked it. Don't get me wrong, but I felt that coming even before we even see anything, right? So I feel this grooming sort of situation going on, and it doesn't feel comfortable.
Quagmire? Are you talking about the guy from Family Guy? Who are you talking
about?
Yeah.
But he's just like a perv, you know what I mean?
Giggity. Oh, you mean like that? Like a weird
Yeah, but calm down. Like a more mature way of doing it, yeah, instead of Quagmire stuff.
Okay. I didn't know that's where you were going there with it. I'm like, are you talking about the same guy I'm thinking of? Okay.
What other Quagmire do you know?
No, that's what I'm asking. Like, is this a Game of Thrones character? I don't know. It's Sir Quagmire.
Feels so weird when I'm talking. I got this swollen part on the top of my mouth, man. Sorry, guys. We have a lisp here.
Visiting the pleasure houses too often.
I was about to say.
Sorry, I had to.
I can't see what it is, so I don't know. I don't know. I can't see what it is, so I don't know what it is, man. I just know it's swollen.
The next scene. Moving on.
No, moving
on. The next scene, King Viserys attends a meeting of his small council. Rhaenyra is no longer
What'd you do, Nick?
That's a banger.
Sorry.
This guy.
Oh man.
I don't know where that came from, but
Sorry
yeah,
to throw you
okay.
off. Go ahead.
Viserys is now next scene. Viserys is attending a meeting of a small council. Rhaenyra is no longer the cupbearer, but she has a full-on seat at the table, which is nice. Tywin Lannister, who has now the master of ships, he's replaced Corlys, has brought troubling news. It seems that they have traded the crab feeder for the sea snake, as now the Valyrian fleets holds the stepstones. Lord Corlys can control the vital sea lanes going through it, giving him considerable leverage over the crown. Viserys is surprised that Corlys would still be upset about his spurning a marriage alliance with the young lady Laena.
The 2-year-old.
But Maester Mello says that Lord Corlys is a prideful man and that his pride has been wounded, so they must seek to salvage it. Otto Hightower, however, reveals the situation is worse than that he's received a disturbing report from his brother in Oldtown that Corlys has entered into negotiations with the Sea Lord of Braavos. The report says that Corlys intends to secure a marriage alliance with Braavos by wedding his daughter Laena to the Sea Lord's son. Otto notes the obvious. If Corlys succeeds, it will add even more pressure for Viserys to quickly force Rhaenyra into a marriage pact to secure new allies of their own to counterbalance the Valyrians. Rhaenyra hears this in silence.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, this is one of those things like small council meetings, like I mentioned before. I try to pay attention. I tune most of this out because I'm like, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about, who's what, and what's going on. But yeah, this is just some interesting information that we may need later, but maybe not. I don't know yet. I'm just kind of like,
yeah,
we're talking about Essos, they're talking about Braavos, they're talking about places we've heard of in Game of Thrones, but they haven't really been big parts of House of the Dragon as of yet.
Mm-hmm. No.
Next scene, Rhaenyra returns to her chambers for the night, and she finds a sack that's been left on her table. Opening it, she finds a page boy's clothes, like commoner's clothes to change into, and a note written in High Valyrian, along with a map, indicating that one of the painted panels next to her bed conceals a hidden passageway to a secret staircase. Rhaenyra changes into the clothes and heads down the staircases, leading her through the shrine of Balerion's skull under the castle, and out into the out of the Red Keep, where she meets her uncle Daemon. He leads her out into the town, both of them hiding their recognizable Targaryen silver white hair, Daemon with a hood and Rhaenyra wearing a hat.
So a couple of things. I had a question about here, or comment. Was that passage in Game of Thrones that's in that room? Because I feel like it was, and I'm just not connecting the dots on that. Like, where I'm like, I feel like that would have been something that maybe was still existing in that castle. Is that the case?
I'm sure it is, but like we never really saw, aside from like the king's bedroom, like Cersei's bedroom or something, we never really saw bedrooms. Like, so I don't know.
Okay.
Like,
I just couldn't remember, like, there was a scene maybe where that played into, like, that passage was still, because I know, like,
isn't that where Cersei had to go out?
Well, Tyrion did have ways of sneaking in and out of the castle in the show, right? That's
yeah. I don't know. Like, again, I don't know. Like, because the castle doesn't look the same, like, minus the throne room, but even the throne room doesn't even look 100% the same. Right. So, I mean, I'm sure it existed, but
okay, I just didn't know
if that was see it.
I just didn't know if that was like a nod to, like, oh yeah, look, it's this passage, right? Like, I didn't know if you guys knew.
I don't think so. I didn't think it was anything of like, oh my god, like that. Look, it would, like, it's the same one. So
also, like, the intention of, like, this weird rendezvous that they have, like, leaving the fucking clothes and everything that that entails, and where the night goes, that's actually, like, just as creepy. I felt like revisiting this. Like, I just thought it was just like, Again, I don't know what the intentions were there initially, or like if it just went off the rails somehow throughout the night. But like the whole plan of leaving the clothes there for her to sneak out into the night with him is just like creepy fucking uncle shit that's going on in this episode. So I just wanted to point that out. Like it's like again, I was more bothered by this episode the first time around, but like it was still weird like to see that. I was like, this is a fucking weird rendezvous in the middle of the night that he's setting up here, like this, that they're embarking on, right? And it's almost like were both their heads in the same place, or did it just progress to that point?
I think it's been a little obvious that there's a little bit of sexual tension since the first time we saw them together, like when he gave her the necklace in episode 1. Like I feel like there's a little bit of sexual tension there.
On both their parts? On both their parts, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Damon, in a sense, because like he's attracted to her, but he also can have power over her. And maybe he's getting it because she has a way with him. Like, I don't know. It's like they're bouncing off each other's like energies. And I think it's just like, I think this is just now she's of age, I guess. And so he feels like this is the time to attack, you know, like.
So as creepy as this still is, because he's her uncle and like the setting that they embark into here in a moment, I actually didn't feel as terrible this time around because she was 18, which I guess it doesn't make it that much better, but I did not realize that the first time I watched this. I will tell right now, because she looks the same as she did 3 fucking episodes ago. So I assume that she was like 14 or 15 here, right? Which again, like so like revisiting this, it made it a little easier to deal with, I feel like, because the first time around, but it's still creepy, like, but it's just like, it's like, okay, she's an adult now. And again, jumping ahead, I didn't know that I forgot that he didn't seal the deal in this moment. I thought he did. For whatever reason, I thought that like something does go further in that pleasure house scene, which it doesn't ultimately, which made me feel again a little bit better about the situation. Right? I don't know about you guys.
Jay's sitting in the corner watching it again.
Hey,
he's tired of hearing this talk.
I watched it twice.
Oh my god. Yay.
Anyways, sorry.
Okay, so Damon is now with Rhaenyra. He's taking her through a street fair filled with tightrope walkers, jugglers, fire breathers, musicians, dancers, and fortune tellers. Rhaenyra's excited night sneaking out of the castle is juxtaposed with Alicent's dreary married life, tending to her crying newborn, which is presumed Helena Targaryen, and volunteering to bathe the king's sores when the handmaidens are too rough. The infection Viserys is suffering from wasn't stopped by amputating 2 of his fingers, only slowed, and the sores on his back are slightly worse than before.
Yeah, it's gross.
I guess the maggots aren't working, eh?
No,
until in sickness and health, everyone. Remember this.
I have a note about this actually, because I remember we talked about it on the last episode where like if we're talking about maggots. Hold on, I got a note about that.
Oh no.
I gotta bring this up. Leprosy and maggot therapy still exists to this day. I mean, we know about it's not as common, and it's not really commonplace for them to do this. But in some countries still where they don't have like, you know what I mean, like better alternatives to this kind of thing, where leprosy still does exist, it is still a thing apparently. I just wanted to point that out when I looked it up on my research online. Obviously, that's not the route that they go like in modern medicine these days, right? But it is still something that does help somewhat apparently, like in maggot therapy. That's look it up, guys.
No, absolutely not. I will take your word for it, and I will just leave it there.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Okay, let's see. So that was the juxtapose. Okay, great. Meanwhile, Damon takes Rhaenyra to a street play, basically a cruel pantomime showing what the small folk really think about the royal succession. This troupe of mummers, or these actors, present the succession choices between the brother, the daughter, or the little princeling of 3, meaning Daemon, Rhaenyra, or Aegon. The lead actor asks the crowd if Rhaenyra will be a strong or feeble ruler, and they all shout feeble in cheers and laughter. The lead actor again concludes that baby Aegon should be their heir because he has 2 things Rhaenyra does not: a conqueror's name and a cock. The crowd of commoners applauds while Rhaenyra jests, "It's all lies, slander, treason." That the prince has the latter. As they leave, Daemon says that he brought Rhaenyra to the farce or to the show to show her that most of the small folk are still convinced that as a male, baby Aegon has a much stronger claim to the throne. Rhaenyra says that she doesn't care what the commoners think, but Daemon insists that she'll need to if she expects to rule them someday. So
he's putting it out there. He's telling her, man, like you gotta realize, this is kind of an episode that was in Game of Thrones.
Okay, now you want to be my uncle? You're grooming me, and now you want to be my uncle and give me some wise words? Like, really?
Well, it should have been reversed. I know it was kind of weird. It
Strange.
should have been wise words first, but you give her wise words after, and you can't groom her. If in the beginning, I would think. I don't know anything about that, but I mean, I would just think.
This is just another example of the more things change, the more things stay the same, in the sense of like obviously they always had people telling stories through plays back then. Also on Game of Thrones, we had a whole play scene with the whole what's her name?
The Lannisters.
Arya. There was the Arya whole thing with the play people when she has the many-faced men.
She sees the play when they're talking about Ned being beheaded.
And it brings her up to speed. Like, so this is like, again, similarly, just like royalty seeing how the town perceives them. And you kind of get like a little bit of a flea bottom action in this scene, as well as the pleasure house stuff that's going to come. So like the town very much is still the same outside of the kingdom that we experience. Although not as bad, I think, but that's because they completely disregard them in Game of Thrones. Like that's at a time where like the Lannisters don't give a fuck about the poor, and like this seems like they're still surviving somewhat out there. They're just like lower than I don't know. I just feel like the people are not as
poor.
Yeah, they're not fed up with the hierarchy, like the rulers as much at this point in time. It seems like they're a bit happier than they were, but they're still making fun of them in the plays and everything else, right? So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, in continuation of that scene, Rhaenyra, she's, just tells Daemon that she wants to spend one night free of the burdens of her inheritance and not to be constantly reminded of them. So seeking some fun, she decides to swipe some food from a street vendor and runs off without paying. Running through the alleys, she's stopped. She runs into a gold cloak. Turns out to be Harwin Strong, who recognizes her and Daemon, and basically with a grin tells her to take care and be more cautious on her way. And he just continues. He lets her run off and keep going. At the Red Keep, Alicent is in bed, snuggled like snug as a bug in a rug. And her maid comes in and says that Viserys has summoned her to his bed. And she's like, "Oh, but the hour is quite late." And the maid's like,
"Nice try." I'm sorry, but it's the king,
Yeah. So anyways, she goes and she endures boring, pleasureless sex with an ailing husband old enough to be her father. Alicent has
on his back.
I know. Alicent has a look of bored disinterest as they couple. Though whenever Viserys does turn to face her, she switches to a fake smile as a dutiful wife.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Do you ever do that with your husband?
No.
Put a fake smile on?
Two things. Her it's late was the "I'm tired" excuse, which didn't work in this situation. Okay, first off. Secondly, it's like he's literally like the king is summoning.
Concentrate. Oh man.
The second part, like about this, is the dead look in her eyes. Brutal. Like no man wants to see that. like I get it. Like she's clearly not enjoying herself, but like, yeah, that's like that was like the scene is just as disturbing as the next one. Is that?
It's like hard to decide which one, right?
I know. I'm like, poor girl.
I guess it's like, you know, hard to watch for like you, like it's different. It differs from like for you guys and then for me, because like what is like hard for you guys to like watch is like been there, done that.
Made that face before.
No, it's absolutely
hard to watch because it's just kind of like, oh girl, I know, I know, girl, I know.
No, absolutely. No, I mean like
I'm not talking recently. I'm just talking like in general.
But like, oh, sure. No, but even seeing it from that perspective of like, again, like you're seeing the wounds, you're seeing like it's like a whole trifecta of like unpleasantness going on here. It really makes you like feel for her. And like again, like she tried to pull like I'm tired fucking move there, and like that was not happening. It was just like, yeah, I don't care. You have to come with me. Like,
back then the headache, and I got a headache and I'm tired kind of thing didn't work.
No, because the king summoned you.
Yeah,
so you just gotta lie there, basically.
You know,
you just gotta take it.
It's brutal. Anyways.
Heidi ho.
Oh my god. Okay, so back at the city. Oh my god. Outside the castle, Daemon takes Rhaenyra to a brothel place, or the pleasure house.
Yes.
On the Street of Silk. Rhaenyra watches a performance by naked male and female dancers with a mix of fear and interest as she drinks cheap wine. Daemon then leads her down into a lower level of the brothel, taking his hood off and tossing Rhaenyra's hat aside, revealing their recognizable Valyrian hair to any onlookers. The lower den of the brothel is an orgy, with pairs and groups enjoying themselves. We have it all: men with women, women with women, men with men, multiples, and so on and so forth. Everyone's enjoying themselves.
A good old time, yeah, man.
Rhaenyra, who's been a sheltered princess this whole time, is a little disorientated by the display around her, but also transfixed. Daemon says that he brought Rhaenyra here to show her that fucking is a pleasure, you see, for the woman as it is the man.
Yeah, Rhaenyra didn't know what the hell was going on. She was getting a little gushy in the pants there, and she was like, I don't know what the hell's happening here to me. Right? She hasn't figured that out yet.
Oh God, you said gushy.
Good old uncle.
Oh man,
good old uncle teaching her. That's kind of weird.
I survive. My one note here between this scene and the last one was that I just wrote down none of the sex you actually want to see. This episode gave you a bunch of Game of Thrones sex that you really don't want to see, honestly. Like in this episode, I was like, I don't want to see that last scene with Alicent.
Honestly, uneasy. So far, Game of Thrones versus House of the Dragon sex scenes. House of the Dragon, like,
I know. There is also, don't forget that other David sex scene where he's like thrusting the girl from behind and he's like bored. He's like, he's like, I'm bored.
Everyone's having boring sex in the House of the Dragon. It's like, oh God.
He was losing his heart on, man.
I know. But it's true. Christina, she mentioned it last time we talked about that episode too.
Like, ew.
Yeah, I know you said that. You're like, this is a gross sex scene.
She's just like humping her. Like, what is this? I'm not a dog. Like, weird.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, none of the sex you want to see in this show, apparently. Anyways.
Oh man.
Keep it fair for everybody.
This synopsis is really descriptive here. After
paraphrase as much as you want here. Yeah. There's a bunch of people
having. No, I'm gonna read it word for word. Anyways, it was like after watching a particularly muscular man fellate another man.
It does say that. I can see it. Yeah.
I am dying. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Uh,
Why am I 12? Like I have a child. Like I'm a grown person.
all right, we're all giggly here.
Oh my God.
My literal name on the screen is Pleasure House Niece. Here we go.
Oh my god. Okay. Rhaenyra can't hold back her desire any longer and leans in and starts kissing her uncle Damon. Between kisses, Damon says that marriage may be a duty, but it shouldn't stop them from doing what they want and having sex with who they want. I must say that this scene was kind of like pretty with all the like drapery happening. It was kind of like creepy as hell, but it was really kind of like pretty.
Yeah.
The good old Valerian way.
Also, what a fucking bold move on their part in the middle of a fucking orgy pleasure house. They're just like, yeah, here we are. They're fucking David and like, hey, how's it going, everybody?
You know why? Nobody's gonna believe those people, those folk. Anyways, that's why.
Well, you think you're safe.
Comes back to bite them in the ass. I just think
Right.
like even like this is a bold fucking move on his part. I'm just like, wow, like you're
Yeah.
just going for it, eh, buddy? You went to the most bait fucking play. You think like everyone's like having sex so like no one cares, but like you're still a figure in this city, like right? You know what I mean? Like
But
how
did he do it on purpose?
I think he did. And
as
I
a
think
turn on. Yeah.
no,
Oh
but
no.
no, I think he did
Mess up-
because the conversation he
her
has
up.
with Viserys coming
that's
up,
smart. That's
I
smart.
think he did it on purpose.
Interesting. Okay, I never actually thought of that. That's actually smart.
I
Yeah.
didn't until just recently. And then I was
Yeah.
like, I think he did it on purpose.
Yeah, you guys are right. I
Um,
think you're right. Yeah.
yeah, so anyways, amongst all of this orginess happening in this 10-minute scene, Rhaenyra leans in for another kiss, but Damon slowly
Mm.
oh yeah, anyways, this is oh my god, there's more. He spins
He has
her
second
around.
thoughts. Yeah, he has second thoughts and like he like gets her to like almost do it and then he backs off himself. He's like, nah, I'm good actually. Like this is too much even
Yeah.
for me.
He like takes her pants off. He like
No, he
unbuttons
just
her
wanted to take her
shirt,
virginity.
but he doesn't touch
did.
her.
He would
Yes.
have though.
He put it in.
No, he didn't.
No.
Come on, he didn't push it up
No.
tight on.
No.
No.
It looked
But
like
see,
he did.
But the first time I seen like in my mind, like he took her to this pleasure house and this went down. And then like revisiting it, I was like, oh,
He doesn't. He just teases her.
Yeah.
Like
It's
he
still
just teases
super
her.
fucking creepy, but not as much as it was the first time because she was 18 and he fucking teased her and was just like, you know what? Even I'm not this fucked up. He was just
So when
like,
she was standing there, after wearing her pants down,
He pulled her pants. He
Yes.
took her pants down and he
But he
undid her top. But he didn't do anything with her. Like he just teased her to the point where it's like right on that edge, and then he backed off.
She wanted it though. She's the one that pursued and like tried to kiss them, and he was like, "Whoa, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't." Like it was one of those type of moves, like where he
Yeah.
was like, "You know what? Nah, I'm good." And to your point, now that makes sense if this was some sort of power play fucking move on his part, right? I didn't even think of that, but like I was just like, why not take it there? Because we know he eventually does. And maybe I thought maybe he was just feeling guilty in the moment, but now thinking like
Well,
a move, like that's even more fucked up then if that's how you think of it. Like he wanted people to see that shit, right? Like, yeah, and then he was just like, no, I'm good.
yeah, it's like it's either it could be that he's he feels guilty about doing this to his niece and his brother, or he's no longer excited about the situation because he's lost control now. Like
Yeah.
she's in control now, right? And he's not about that. I don't know. Anyways, he quickly leaves the brothel and Rhaenyra is kind of left alone and snaps out of it. And, she rushes out into the hallway, not thinking that she's not just doesn't have her disguise on. She's not even thinking about where she is or what she's doing because she yells out Damon. Like she yells out his name, which kind of gives it also away. As she's searching for him. Anyways, there's a little boy, or they call him a street urchin, who's sitting in the hallway, obviously being a little spider or a little, whatever, and recognizes her and scurries off himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that. Next scene, Rhaenyra returns to the Red Keep through the front gate, though. And in a haze of wine and lust, not bothering to return through the secret passage, she comes to her own bedroom door, which is guarded by Kristen Cole. Which when she enters the bedroom, he's obviously like, "What the hell? Like, where
Who
did
the
you come
hell?
from? Like, why?" Anyways, he's
How'd
very
you find
confused about the
that?
whole thing. But she's obviously still in a very playful mood. We'll call it a playful mood.
Yeah.
Well, she's round
And
up.
yeah, she is. And so she grabs his helmet and flirtily, jokingly, playfully with him, entices him to come into the bedroom
Yeah.
and basically convinces him to get it on.
Yeah, and you know what? There's something I did know was that I actually thought this was one of the more passionate love scenes in all of Game of Thrones. Actually, this one kind of was, and like the follow
Finally.
up, yeah, like this, like to follow up all that other shit that we
She
just dealt with.
raped him.
Well, yeah, she forced herself on him pretty hard, but like he
No,
was
that poor
interested.
guy.
He was interested. It wasn't
Poor
like
guy, man.
interested.
How come nobody cares about the men? Uh-huh.
I didn't say anything. I even said a word.
I was just saying that, like, yeah, it was one of the more passionate, I think, scenes that we actually they did spend a couple of minutes actually
That's
with
the
them
thing.
hooking up, which is kind of like without
Sharing their night of ecstasy, or
Yeah.
are the words here.
you know
No,
what?
but the best part
The
is she
reason why
giggles.
yes, she does. The reason why this was so descriptive, Christine, I think you were like, why is this one so? Whoever wrote this, I must have been getting off to this episode.
For real.
Like,
Because I was like,
One hand
there's
in his
a-
pocket, yeah. And the other
there's
hand
a
writing
lot
the
of
fucking Game of Thrones notes.
descriptions here. I'm like, okay, well,
we glossed over
anyways.
those scenes pretty good, though. That was pretty good. Like we paraphrased the shit out of those ones.
Yeah, I think our listeners are getting the hint.
Yes.
Anyways,
Yeah, hook up.
okay.
Kristen
So
Cole and her hook up. There you go.
yeah. Took her to Pound Town. Anyways, okay.
Why am I 12? That was the best. You're like, why am I 12? You're laughing. And then you throw that out. Okay, go ahead.
Oh my god. Okay. In the pre-dawn hours, Otto Hightower is awakened by one of his guards informing him that there's a messenger from the White Worm.
Yeah.
And
These
so
names.
yeah. And anyways, he arrives into the court and it's the same street urchin that spotted Rhaenyra calling after Daemon in the brothel. Elsewhere, as dawn arrives in the city, a very hungover Daemon wakes up in an unfamiliar chamber and sees his former lover, Mysaria, boiling a drink. Basically, Daemon asks if he's her prisoner, which he says, nope, she is his protector, gives him the drink, saying it'll take the edge off his hangover, but he spills it out. Daemon groggily says he doesn't need protection from a common whore, but Mysaria says she's no longer a whore, having learned that the skin trade can only take her so far in life. Anyways, it's interesting because she's an information broker in the city's underbelly, and the same little street urchin or little boy who just was with Otto Hightower revealing some gossip enters and gives Mysaria some reward money. So she's obviously the master of whispers at this point.
Yeah.
She leaves Daemon, who's still too hungover to stand, casually saying that as she goes, that he can pay for the room on his way out.
The only
Interesting.
note, the only note I had here is that Mysaria's accent isn't as bad in this. Remember, like we couldn't figure out what fucking accent she was trying to pull off last episode she was in.
Yeah.
I think she's got a handle on whatever this fucking accent is here that she's doing here,
and
because
she was never seen from again.
Yeah, because that last episode, I don't know what was going on there, but like this episode didn't bother me whatsoever. This Mysaria's accent, so I don't know what part of fucking Westeros she's from, but she's chosen whatever accent she's doing here, and it actually worked in this scene. It's kind of like almost British, but not British. I don't know. That's my way of describing it. Anyways.
Oh man. Okay. So anyways, the next scene is Otto Hightower. He's outside of King Viserys's private chambers, and he's hesitating on the distasteful task that he's about to do. On one hand, Otto has sought to undermine Daemon and has been plotting to have Rhaenyra removed as heir. But the news he has received could easily destroy them both without any effort on his part. On one hand, he's a father himself, having known Viserys for years. He genuinely takes no pleasure in giving the king this awful news that his daughter apparently has lost her virginity in a brothel. He knocks on the door and wakes Viserys, reporting that Rhaenyra has been spied in the pleasure house. This itself doesn't alarm Viserys, which is interesting, but he goes, but Otto has to literally spell it out for him and say that she herself was coupling, not just looking with her uncle Daemon. And then this sets Viserys off, saying that it must be a lie. You know, what does he say? Something like, tell me who they are and I'll rip out their eyes myself or something. Otto responds that he considered not reacting to the report of a single spy, but he's had multiple castle servants confirm that they saw Rhaenyra creeping back in through the main gates of the city during the pre-dawn hours disguised as a page.
So this is where I gotta like call out Otto for stirring it up, honestly, because like I think his description is actually even worse than the actual act itself of whatever occurred in that fucking house. Because like I wrote it down here. He's like he's dancing around it for his sake, I guess, and he's like, "What behaviors?" What he's like behaviors. He's like, "Speak it plainly." He's like, "Well, they were seen together in the bowels of a pleasure den, coupling." Like the way he says it. The guy's like, what? Like the way the bowels of a fucking pleasure den? Like, who fucking says that? So it's like, yeah, like, really, dude? Like, you're gonna just fucking just throw that out there? Like, he's dancing around it. And he's like, well, if you really want to know, he says like the most like horrible fucking way of saying it. Like, I don't know. I blame Otto personally.
Yeah.
Someone told you saw your fucking significant other cheating on you in the
bowels
somewhere
of the pleasure house. I'd be like, ill, first of all.
I just like how he said it. They were seen in the bowels. He's like, because at first you're right. You're like, yes, and what of it? They were seen in the pleasure house. Okay, whatever. Like, you don't understand, sir.
Yeah, it's just
ridiculous.
Oh man, this whole thing is like, oh god, here we go again. Now it's
Great
like,
episode.
Anyway, so Viserys is now furious at this point. He redirects his anger and accuses Otto of being ambitious. That, you know, so ambitious that he would have Rhaenyra followed, basically stalked. And yeah, they just go back and forth talking about this. Viserys is like refusing to believe it and tells him to get out. But, you know, Otto at this point also, and neither does Viserys, realize that Alicent is still in the room. She's behind the privacy screen and she's heard the entire conversation.
Yeah.
So when Viserys realizes that Alicent is there, you know, he's a little taken aback. And anyway, she walks up to him and looks very, very upset about this.
Oh yeah.
Anywho, Rhaenyra, the next scene is Rhaenyra in her bedchambers the next morning. She's combing her hair. She looks pretty joyful and gleeful. Sir Criston knocks on the door and anyways, she lets him in. And he says that he tells her that the queen wishes to speak to her. So Rhaenyra goes out into the Godswood and meets Alicent there. And Alicent bluntly asks what happened that night. Rhaenyra feigns ignorance. Anyways, Alicent says that Otto came in and said, you know, these worrying allegations against her, that she was with her uncle. Even this woman who's had children can't even say the words, you know, like she's so like, you know. Anyways, Rhaenyra is just like, no, we were just out for a night of fun, drinking some wine, but we didn't do anything. Anyways, Alicent gets right serious and, you know, says, no, did you fuck Daemon in a pleasure house? Like she just comes out and says it like, this is like fucking serious. Like it's not a joke.
Yeah.
Anyways, and she does mention in this, like Rhaenyra says it's a vile accusation, but Alicent ponders. She's like, well, you Targaryens do have queer customs. And the look of disgust on her face when she says it is kind of just like, whoa, chill, girl, chill. Like,
this has always been apparently like common knowledge for these folk, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a little, just the look on her face. It was just kind of like simmer down.
Yeah.
Anyways, Rhaenyra, I guess now seeing how serious this is, she basically pleads her case to Alicent, saying like, you know me, you know I wouldn't do this. I'm innocent. You're my friend. You're my sister. It's a complete lie. You know, anyone who questions this, my virtue, it's an act of treason. You know, Alicent seems to like calm down a bit. Anyways, they go back and forth about this. They're talking back and forth, and Rhaenyra is adamantly, which she's not lying. Like nothing happened with her and Daemon necessarily, so she's not lying. But it doesn't look good,
No.
you know. And especially, I mean, it would have been one thing if she hadn't have had sex that night, but because she did, it's kind of like, now what?
Yeah.
If Viserys ordered the Maester to check her out at this point,
Yeah,
she
that's
would
true.
be screwed. Like,
Good point. That's a good
you know,
point.
she would be screwed if, like, you know, she would have been better off to just like have this happen, go back to her room and go to sleep and wake up, and then it'd be like, well, check me out, like I'm good, like I'm still a virgin, right? But
She had to go get laid.
She took it too far. Anyways, that was that.
Yep.
That was that scene. Pretty much overall. But
I love this next scene. This next scene's my favorite, I think.
Yeah. So several hours later, somewhat more sober Daemon stumbles through the gates of the Red Keep, only to be so messed up. Only to be immediately seized by Harold Westerling and two other King's Guard to bring him to Viserys. The guards roughly drop the still semi-coherent Daemon on the floor of the throne room, and they leave. Then Viserys appears. He accuses Daemon of defiling his daughter and gives him a swift kick in the ribs, asking if he will even attempt to deny it. Daemon does not, instead asking why this matters, given that the two of them were Rhaenyra's age. Oh, when Viserys and Daemon were Rhaenyra's age. They visited most of the brothels on the Street of Silk. Viserys responds that they were young men and that Rhaenyra is just a girl. Daemon counters that Rhaenyra is legally a woman grown and half sarcastically says that it's better that her first experience is with him than with some random whore, thus lying to Viserys that he actually had sex with her.
Mm-hmm.
Angered, Viserys kneels down and starts strangling Daemon, proclaiming that he has ruined her. No lord will wed her now in this condition. Daemon brazenly says that he will wed her, which was like, whoa, like
ballsy.
Yeah. So Viserys stifles a laugh at the absurdity and says Daemon's already married to Rhea Royce. Daemon says he'll just take a second wife, like Aegon the Conqueror. But that insults Viserys even further, and he draws the Valyrian steel dagger and holds it to his throat, kneeling on his chest, and says that Daemon is no conqueror, but a plague on their house. Daemon insists that if Viserys gives him Rhaenyra, together they will restore House Targaryen to its proper glory. Viserys bitterly accuses that it's not Rhaenyra that Daemon wants, but the throne. He rises, dismissively tells Daemon to go back to the Vale and his lawful wife and to try to restore whatever scrap of honor he has left, and he never wants to see him again. So
it went from hugs to I don't want to see you again.
This scene makes a lot more sense given the theory that you guys said that he kind of purposely set this all in motion for them to be seen as a result of like whatever he tried to do here in this scene, kind of like try to salvage the situation. It seemed like a little bit, right? So like, yeah, maybe you guys were right that was purposeful, and then in that sense is that he was trying to.
He didn't deny it in this one too. That's why I thought that he banged her. So.
He straight up says it here, but I also didn't know if that was just him playing games in this moment.
He's totally playing games because he knows how pissed off Viserys is.
Yeah. He's a hard guy to like to honestly, to
Be brothers with.
yeah, well, that too, right? Yeah, no, he's good. He's a good character. I mean, like a
Mhm.
flawed character like this is he's one of the best characters of this show, absolutely. Oh, that was the other note I put at the start. I forgot to mention at the top of the show. After watching this episode, I realized the reason, as much as I'm enjoying watching this and talking about it, and how much I like this as a companion piece to Game of Thrones and how it's different in some ways. The reason I don't think I like this, mind you, this is only one season in so far. The reason I don't like this as much as Game of Thrones so far is because I don't think they have as many interesting characters as of yet. Like, I think there's a lot more characters in Game of Thrones though as we go on. So that's why I'm interested to see what they do in this second season. But as of right now, I think other than Daemon and like
Viserys.
yeah, everybody feels like an amalgamation of other characters from Game of Thrones, like in a way, you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
the
Totally.
Valerians, like Corlys, Rhaenys, like they seem pretty like interesting
you
to me.
you think? I don't,
Yeah.
but like, I'm just saying they all play certain parts that you can compare to other characters, which are there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a lot of characters on Game of Thrones that are like parallels to these characters, and it's so hard not to make the comparisons between even a young Rhaenyra and eventually where Daenerys kind of goes in the show. You know what I mean? But I guess that's the point because it's this bloodline and everything else. But like, I don't know. For me, like those are the most interesting characters I think in this show so far. They're good characters. I just think Game of Thrones, like, there's nobody as good as Tyrion in this show for me. I'm sorry.
No.
So I feel like that's why that's a better show overall. But again, that's like 8 seasons worth of stuff I'm comparing it to, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of fair. We'll see. Anyways,
Hmm.
D, what do you think? Were you gonna say
I
that? Yeah.
almost see it slowly, like because of the time jumps and stuff like that. I see it slowly getting, closer to the time that they're in now. You know what I mean? Like with the Game of Thrones started. So I see how they're kind of playing the timeline out and how that it's kind of referencing certain people there. But bloodlines change, right? Through as people get married and stuff like that, last names, all those things, houses. But I'm interested too, and also seeing the beginning. How they have the segment where they with the intro of Game of Thrones, how that changes for the next season, right? Because that might show you how it introduces different people, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The next scene is again, it's Viserys. He's back in his bedroom. He's obviously very distressed and rattled. Alicent brings him a cup of wine and they have a conversation, whereas Alicent kind of calms Viserys down, says, I believe Rhaenyra. I had a conversation with her. I don't believe that she did anything. And, basically reminds Viserys that Daemon is a liar, and he's so openly claiming to have sex with Rhaenyra. It's probably not true. He's just doing it to taunt his older brother for disinheriting him. So Viserys, he's calming down, but he's still, he's not convinced that Rhaenyra is totally innocent in any of this. So that wraps that up in that, situation, or that scene. But later that evening, Rhaenyra is summoned to her father's bedchambers, and the guards are told to leave. Viserys has been heating up his Valyrian steel dagger, Cat Claw. I think it's Cat Claw, right? I think it's what it's called.
Yeah.
He explains that the dagger was carried by Aegon the Conqueror and generations before him. When Aegon the Conqueror died, Viserys explains that he realized that the apocalyptic winter he saw in his dragon dream would not happen in his own lifetime, but he sought to pass the warning on in future generations of their dynasty. In addition to passing the story down from king to heir, Aegon himself commissioned the last of the old Valyrian pyromancers to etch a hidden message into the dagger, only visible when it is heated red hot. He hands the heated dagger to Rhaenyra, who reads off the High Valyrian, text that says, "From my blood come the prince that was promised, and his will be the Song of Ice and Fire,"
Which is one of the books.
which is one of the books. It's the book that they wrote in Game of Thrones at the end. Anyways, but it's interesting because we see this dagger in all of Game of Thrones, and we don't know that if you heat it up, it says it right in the blade.
Yeah, this is a big scene technically, if you think of it about it that in that sense. Yeah, absolutely. This is a very revealing scene and an important scene for sure. Yeah.
So that was interesting. And then Viserys goes on to say that responsibility is handed to Rhaenyra. The burden of this knowledge is larger than the throne or herself, even her desires. Viserys says that Jaehaerys would have disinherited her, but that he does not have that luxury. She counteracts and says she hasn't even been given a chance to defend herself, but replies that the truth doesn't matter, perception does. Enough people have already heard the gossip that she was cited. And, Rhaenyra counters again, defiantly says that if she were born a man, she could bed whomever she wanted and father a dozen bastards, and no one at court would bat an eye. Viserys says, unfortunately, you're right, but you're born a woman, which means that you cannot do this. It is what it is. He explains he could disinherit her and name Aegon heir in her place, but his duty is to hold the realm together. And they are on the verge of civil war with the House Valyrian, and he needs a marriage alliance between their families to unite the Valyrians back with the rest of the realm. He commands Rhaenyra to marry Corlys' son Laenor, and Corlys will not accept the match if Rhaenyra is anything less than the named heir of the Iron Throne. Rhaenyra, yeah.
You know what? It was weird. Why did it put in the brackets there? Should the White Walkers return? I couldn't get that because I was trying to picture it in that scene when I was watching it.
He was saying to her that he needs somebody there in place to defend the realm in case the White Walkers ever return. So that was a cool reference to the fact that they are aware, even at this time, that the White Walkers were in existence at some point prior to this time, and that they were afraid that they were going to come back. And then fast forward to 180 whatever fucking years later in Game of Thrones, where they think it's a myth. Like mostly they're like, yeah, that never happened, right? Like it's just one of those things where, like, as time goes on, sometimes you don't know what was, like things from the past, like dinosaurs, like people that don't believe in that shit somehow, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess that they just didn't think it was going to happen. The White Walkers, like they had done away with them if they weren't real, or maybe they just, they don't exist anymore. Just like dragons, right? In the future.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's why, essentially.
I agree. I think so too.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, Rhaenyra, she agrees to the marriage match. Shockingly, but she agrees under one condition, that Viserys removes Otto Hightower as Hand of the King. Ooh, big move.
Yeah.
But her reasoning is, Otto has slighted Rhaenyra now, and Rhaenyra points out that he has always been pushing for his grandson to be named heir to the Iron Throne, and if Aegon was named heir, it would ruin Rhaenyra's marriage alliance, which Viserys is so focused on obtaining. So as long as Otto remains Hand, he will always try to undermine peace with the Valyrians. Viserys at first scoffs at every lord in his council as self-interested somehow, but Rhaenyra insists that Otto is so self-interested that he would indeed jeopardize the stability of the realm in his goal to put an heir with Hightower blood on the throne. While reluctant, Viserys had not been blind to Otto's constant attempts at manipulation over the years. He grudgingly relents.
Yeah, I mean, she's not wrong, right? In that sense, but like, I think it's like one of those problematic situations where, like, even though he's like does not have his best interests at heart anymore, he does still give him good advice time to time, and he's not very good at being king, as we've witnessed, and somewhat like he's always questioning his decisions. So like, it's one of those things where, like, the guy's not all that bad, but he does have his own interests at heart, which I think is what you can't have that. So I get what he's about to do here in this next scene. Also, the whole thing about the perception, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, but the perception, that's fucking 100% true.
100%.
100%
perception
true.
is
that's the worst. Like, once like a rumor gets around about something, it doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day after
right,
it.
you just got to ride it out.
Damage is done. So like
Yeah.
that's
Even with today's standards.
Oh, 100%.
It's true.
Yep.
The damage is already done. You're tainted to some degree, like despite like anything contrary to the fact
Yep.
of the evidence or whatever, right? Like,
The
yeah,
truth is, it doesn't matter.
If they would have had social media back then, she would have known before she got home, man.
I was just reading on X.
Yeah.
Apparently, you got it on in a pleasure house. Is this true?
Yeah. Imagine that, eh?
That's hilarious.
Go ahead, Christina. I know. Bring it home. Not much.
No. It's okay. So, again, sometime later, maybe later that day, later that week, I don't know, sometime later, in a new scene, Otto Hightower is summoned to meet Viserys in the small council chamber. Viserys immediately launches into the story of how his own father, Balon, served as Hand of the King for only 5 days. Balon was a healthy warrior, dragon rider, in the prime of his life when the old King Jaehaerys named him as the new Hand of the King. But a mere 5 days later, he suddenly died of a burst belly. Balon was then replaced as Hand by Otto himself, who has held the office ever since. In only 5 days, Otto went from just another man in a royal court to the second most powerful man in the realm. Viserys wonders how long it took Otto to start choosing his own interests over his king. Viserys says that Alicent did not get him through the worst of his grief after Emma died, says that Alicent did get him through the worst of his grief. But he realizes now just how much Otto intended her as a calculated distraction, so the Hightowers could subsume his reign from within. Otto pleads that this is absurd, and he knows that Viserys and Alicent love each other. Viserys doesn't deny it, but Otto's interests no longer align with those of the realm. Pained, Viserys says that the crown and the realm owe Otto a great debt that can never be repaid, and he can no longer trust his judgment. Saying this, he takes Otto's pin of office as Hand off of his tunic.
Dun, dun, dun.
Big moves.
Yeah. Good, smart though. I think it's the right move at this point in time. It's the right move. I think he showed his hand enough times now to know that he doesn't care about his best interests. He's also playing it up for himself and his family and everything else, right?
But to be honest, like, wouldn't you? I would.
Well, listen, of course he wants to be taken care of. Of course he's happy about his daughter being in that position. Absolutely. No, you're right. While doing that, that's why I said he also has provided, I think some valuable advice along the way. I don't think he's all bad, but once he sussed him out and like was like, oh, you have other ideas in mind for yourself and blah 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 blah. I can't blame him for being like, even though he was ordered to do it. It's not like he came up with this on his own. That's yeah, you know what? So maybe it's not as great. It's not like it was his own thing.
I think this is just like, as time went on, he just got more and more power hungry, and the weaker Viserys got, the easier it was to kind of like weasel.
His way in.
Yeah, weasel his way in.
Yeah.
But anyway, so to end off this episode, Rhaenyra is sitting in her room reading, and the Grand Maester arrives, and he presents her with a tea. Basically, it looks like, and she asks, he says, it was brewed carefully. If it was prepared improperly, it could be ineffective or had negative side effects. But she asks, like, what is this for? And who sent it? And, he says, oh, the king sent it. Basically, he goes on to say, it will rid you of any unwanted consequences. Then bows and leaves. Rhaenyra has been presented with moon tea, basically an abortion tea.
Yeah, the morning after.
Meaning that her father either didn't believe her or wasn't sure to believe her when she insisted that she didn't have sex with her Uncle Daemon. She did have sex with Criston Cole, but the scene ends with her just staring at the tea.
That's right. Yeah. There you go.
That's a crazy tea, man.
And that's the tea.
That's the tea. She just spilled it for you guys. All those juicy comments and pleasure houses and uncles, creepy uncles, orgies.
But they have the tea. Don't worry.
There you have
they give it to they give it to all those people in the orgy houses.
Christina, I got to give it up to you. That was one of the more challenging fucking episodes to fucking talk through on this show. Honestly, you did it up. You picked a doozy for yourself this week to take the reins. Honestly, so thank you.
I'm
for that.
just willing.
Straight
I'm a
up.
team player. You know, just give me anything. I'm on it.
You really are. No, and that's why I always love doing these shows with you. It's been a fun time. This was a really good one.
Is Jay doing the next one?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Or else we'll never get through. We'll be here all fucking night. We already have.
Could you imagine me saying these words, right? Reading them out?
I'll be
No,
doing
actually.
the next two. It'll be swinging back over to me for the next two guys. So yeah, make
This
sure.
is how mine started off for the last episode. Dahar is hammering a man to a stake. That's how it started. And putting crabs on him. As all of a sudden Damon rides in. That's how I wrote. That's how I wrote it, man.
Yeah. No, thanks.
You're not wrong though, but you know.
No.
Your comments are good enough for us here on the show. we always look forward to it.
But I do all this writing for what, man? Now I figured out a way to fucking copy.
Pick up. You're like crying about mouth sores this episode. I don't know what's going on there,
bro,
but
man.
anyways,
Something's fucking bad in there. I don't know what's up. Swollen.
Oh boy.
I think I stabbed the top of it with like
He needs some moon tea. He needs to abort whatever is growing in his
No, you know when you eat something and it stabs you at the top, yeah. I think that's what happened, man. It caused it to get like swollen a bit.
Okay. It's not a
Oh.
bacterial thing.
No, man. I've been
Does he need some
disgusting.
maggots?
Yeah, right.
Maggot
You
therapy?
know what? The maggots wouldn't even come near my mouth.
Well, there you have it.
Oh my god, can we wrap this up? Wrap it up.
I know. I'm trying. All right, guys. That was episode 77 of Watching the Throne. As always, tune in on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Like and subscribe. And thank you to everybody that's been checking these episodes out. We've been bringing in some big numbers on the last few episodes of the season of Game of Thrones as we're moving to House of Dragon. It's all because of Christina, of course.
And
Super fan.
Mrs. Worldwide, don't you remember?
That's right, Mrs. Worldwide. So thank you for joining us as always, Christina. Really putting up with us. It's a lot of fun to talk about these episodes. So guys, we'll next time it'll be episode 5. We'll be halfway through officially at House of the Dragon, and make sure to follow us up to the point of the new season 2 of House of the Dragon this summer. That'll be kind of like a really more fun, kind of laid back conversation where we're kind of just like commenting on our thoughts initially, not really doing the deep dive that we do for these episodes because we have like all the notes for ourselves. That'll be kind of like a nice catch up every week to see like what we thought of the episodes. I can't wait, honestly, to get initial reactions going into it. That'll be a lot of fun. That'll be just like a different episode show.
It'll be a different show because it'll be initial reaction. So
yeah, exactly. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Fun.
So, good stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for that, everyone. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks again to JT, of course, and Christina, Silk Road Magician. There you go. I'm Pleasure House Sneaks. Over and out. Later, guys.